ॐ परतत्त्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We have been studying here Swami Vivekananda's practical Vedanta, and we have studied two parts up till now. In the first part, we understood that Swamiji's practical Vedanta consists of three phases. To draw implications from the truths of Vedanta and to apply them in life. That is the first phase of practical Vedanta, like self-confidence, like universal love, and that prepares our mind. And the second phase is to realize Vedanta through Shravan, Manan, and Nididhasana. Though these are lectures on Chandogya Upanishad, Swamiji has brought this from the Brihadaranyaka to complement the ideas. And there he has shown that through Shravan, Manana, and Nididhasana, we realize the truths of Vedanta, and that is the practice of Vedanta. And when we realize in the third phase, our life becomes practical Vedanta. That was in the first chapter. Along with that, first of all, he showed that it is practical because it has been practiced by people who had very busiest lives, like ruling monarchs and commanders. And so we cannot say that we don't have time to practice. And that he told that it has been practiced first and theorized afterwards. That means it has been realized, so it comes to life, and then the intellect tries to understand what has happened and it philosophizes. In the second lecture, we saw, in addition to this, one point is that Vedanta is taught through things familiar to us, like cows and bulls and all that. So instead of taking us away from our world, we are taught that to learn from the things of the world, and the general lesson is the all-pervadingness of Brahman. Then, towards the end of second lecture, we saw that Advaita Vedanta, it compares with all the dualistic systems and says that dualistic systems, as a rule, make a man exclusive, fanatic, and that creates big problems in the world, like the old wars between the Mohammedans and Christians, and also within the fold of Hinduism, we do not kill each other, but criticize each other, those who are dualists. On the other hand, he showed that those who practice Advaita Vedanta, in two ways he has shown that. Suppose we realize Advaita Vedanta, then our life is a blessing to the world. We have the universal love. But the second part was also, if you have understood Advaita Vedanta properly and tried to practice it, two things he told. Advaita Vedanta, if realized, makes a man blessed and his life is a blessing to the world. Advaita Vedanta, if understood properly and tried to practice, that man's life also is a blessing to the world. Because we are chasing the infinity. So we don't have to compete with anybody there. Competition comes only when the result is a finite thing. But because we are chasing infinity, conflict does not come. We become cooperative to each other and proceed towards the reality. That was the second lecture. Now in the third lecture, he continues his reading of the Chandogya Upanishad, and we are seeing now, he refers to the seventh chapter and then to the sixth chapter. For your information, the first five chapters of Chandogya Upanishad deal with worships of various kinds, vairagya, preparation of the mind to receive the Advaita. That is the purpose of the first five chapters. And Advaita Vedanta is really taught in the sixth, seventh, and eighth chapter also. So, Swamiji has taken the seventh chapter first. He had referred to the sixth chapter in the first part where the Tattvamasi was declared. That is from the sixth chapter. But now he takes up the seventh chapter and we start Practical Vedanta Part 3, delivered in London, 17 November 1896. In the Chandogya Upanishad, we read that a sage called Narada came to another called Sanat Kumara and asked him various questions, of which one was if religion was the cause of things as they are. We must get the whole scene because Swamiji is describing there. And Swamiji has called both of them as sages. Narada became a sage later on. At that point, Narada is a veteran scholar. The story goes like this. Narada approaches Sanat Kumar. Sanat Kumar is a small boy, young boy. And Narada approaches him and asks him, please, sir, revered sir, teach me. Sanat Kumar says he knows that Narada is a veteran scholar. So he says, tell me what you know. Then only that which you do not know, I can tell you. In that reply, Narada tells him everything of this world he knows. Everything. All the diverse fields of knowledge he knows. He knows the fine arts like music and dance, and he knows the archery, and he knows the gross sciences like physical sciences, geology, mineralogy, and all that. And he knows the subtle sciences like Bhuta Vidya and Sarpa Vidya and all that. So there is nothing in the world which he does not know. From that we understand Narada was not a man who ran after enjoyment. He ran after knowledge from the beginning of his life. And that is why Swamiji calls him a sage. But the more he knew, the more he became restless, unsatisfied. Why? So it tells us that relative knowledge or knowledge of the world does not solve our problems. Narada told Sanat Kumar all that he knows. And then he said, Mantravideva natu atmavid. Shrutoyam bhavadrishebhya tarati shokam atmavid. I know the objective world, but I do not know myself. I do not know what is my reality. I do not know who is knowing the outside world. And I have heard from people like you, that means under the evolution, it has struck Narada that one who knows himself, his real nature, crosses beyond sorrow. And he says, I am sorrowing because the sense of atripti, non-fulfillment, the more he gets a new knowledge, the more atripti, non-satisfaction comes to his life. So he says that unless I know my own real nature, who is knowing all this? Where can I get a satisfaction? So please take me beyond sorrow. Now Swamiji has his own free way of translating, and he said that he asked him various questions, of which one was if religion was the cause of things as they are. We do not find these words in the Chandogya. So we have to find the connection, how Swamiji has come to this. So Narada asked that what is my real nature? I do not know. And that is the cause of my sorrow. If I know my real nature, then I will have no sorrow. So this real nature of man is what Swamiji means by religion. And it is the cause of everything because if I know that, I do not have sorrow. That means really I know everything and I am satisfied also. So this is how to connect. Swamiji says, Narada asked amongst various questions, if religion was the cause of things as they are, that means is my Atman or what we call Brahman, the universal reality, which is myself, is it the cause of the entire world? That is the meaning. So religion here means realizing one's own real nature or one's own real nature itself is being called religion. And whether that is the cause of all means that if it is the cause of all, it is the reality only without a second that will give satisfaction and there will be nothing which I do not know. Everything will become known. And that is why it is the cause of things. So this is our attempt at connecting Swamiji's words with the original words of the Chandogya Upanishad 7th chapter. And Sanat Kumara leads him, as it were, step by step. That is the beauty of this 7th chapter, telling him that there is something higher than this earth and something higher than that, and so on, till he comes to Akasha, ether. So the story starts like this. Sanat Kumar tells him, what you know, Narada, you think that you know the world, objective world, and you do not know yourself. But I tell you that what you know is only ignorance, wrong knowledge. What you know is only name, he says, name. That means a blank something. That is what you know. And then it turns inside. This name is a form of the universal reality. This name is the form of Brahman or Atman. So instead of knowing the name as representing the world, why not take the name as representing Brahman? It has come from Brahman only. That is why Brahman is the cause of everything. So name has come from Brahman. Now if you can worship feeling that name has come from Brahman, your mind will be turned towards Brahman and not to the outside world at all. That is how it turns his mind. Then their name, then Narada practices it. And being a pure soul, that's why Swamiji has called the message, immediately feels that yes, name is form of Brahman. But then, is there some form which is superior to name and which I can feel as Brahman? Sanat Kumar says yes, your capacity to talk, from there only you have taken the name. So that is a nearer representative of Brahman. Narada asks, is there something nearer? He says, yes. In the mind, names are collected, stored. In the mind, this power of speech is there. So mind is nearer to Brahman than both of these. Like that he proceeds step by step. Then higher and higher and higher, he takes 22 steps are mentioned. Then he comes to the universal elements. That is what Swamiji is picking up. There is something higher than this earth. Earth is the grossest matter universal. Now compared to that, the subtle matters are there. Like water, the elemental water is subtler or the cause of the earth, which is a solid matter. Then what is higher than that earth? Then that is higher than that earth is Teja, the light, universal. The particles are that constituent of matter which gives light. Is there something higher than that? That means more subtle than that? Yes, and that is the wind. Is something higher than the wind? Yes, space, akasha. Now, in those days, the modern scientists were struggling to understand this akasha. If you take it as a vacuum, then it does not satisfy us. If you take it as a matter, also it does not satisfy us. So they propose a substance called ether, not the ether we use in the modern organic chemistry, but ether is the name of primordial matter, which, whether it is blank space or there is some matter there, that they called as ether. So Swamiji is taking this name of ether. Now, Indian concept of Akasha is that it is a space, it is the primordial state of matter, it is the indiscrete matter. When it grossifies, then other forms come out. So that is what is Akasha is, the universal primordial matter. Then that represents Brahman. Brahman is universal consciousness. Brahman is consciousness, one without a second. And this universality is there in Akasha. But consciousness, Akasha also is matter. So the question comes, what is higher than that? We proceed reading, telling him that there is something higher than this earth and something higher than that, and so on, till he comes to Akasha, ether. Ether is higher than light. Yes. Akashad Vayu, Vayos Teja. So Teja is grosser than Akasha. Because in the ether are the sun and the moon, lightning and the stars, everything is within that space. In ether we live and in ether we die. Everything, ether is all pervading. Then the question arises, is there anything higher than that? And Sanat Kumar tells him of prana. This prana is not what we breathe. This prana is the universal life principle. It is the name of Hiranyagarbha. Consciousness along with this Akasha. Consciousness along with the animation. That is prana. Prana is not mere animation. Prana is consciousness along with the animation. Consciousness along with the primordial matter. That is a higher. So, up till now, the consciousness was not referred to. Universal primordial matter we had reached. But then behind that is the consciousness. And this consciousness associated with that Akasha, it is the name is Prana. We call it Hiranyagarbha, Sutratma, etc. It is the universal reality along with the universal matter, universal mind, and everything universal. Along with that, the consciousness, that is called prana. So prana is higher. This prana, according to the Vedanta, is the principle of life. Yes, that is the life principle. When there is consciousness or reflection of consciousness, then only there is animation. And we know life has animation. But the source of that animation is the consciousness, even the reflection of it. So it is called the Pranatattva. It is like ether, why? All pervading. An omnipresent principle and all motion, either in the body or anywhere else, is the work of this prana. Unless there is Chetan behind, there cannot be any motion. We see only motion, but behind the motion is Chetan. Now the modern science tells in each apparently looking solid thing, there are atoms, protons, around which electrons are moving, and there is intramolecular space. So space and prana, that motion, they have all found, but they feel all that is jada, automatic. What is the meaning of automatic? So this is the Indian concept, not only concept, but the realization of the rishis, that the universal consciousness is at the back of everything, and its first manifestation is motion anywhere, either in the body or anywhere else, is the work of this prana. It is greater than Akasha, and through it everything lives. So that is the life principle. Prana is in the mother, in the father, in the sister, in the teacher. Prana is the knower. So the consciousness has come there. Prana is in father, mother, etc. In the Chandogya it is told, even if you utter a bad word to your father, people take you to task. But if the prana has left father's body, even you kick it, it is not wrong. So prana is the main thing. That is how it is showed that prana is the father, prana is the mother, prana is the teacher, prana is the knower. So when consciousness is attached to the body, then the animation comes, and then only we respect him, we feel it is living. In the absence of that, you do not respect. We do not respect any corpse. So that is what Sanat Kumara showed to him through the principle that when there is animation, we feel there is life, and then we respect people. So then he says prana is a no. That means the consciousness is there. It is not only animation, but behind the animation there is consciousness. That means prana is the no. So this Swamiji is telling in his free way, this is what the seventh chapter of the Chandogya has told us. The seventh chapter does not end there, because this prana is along with the matter. Higher than that is consciousness itself. The consciousness itself appears as matter, consciousness itself appears as animation, consciousness itself appears as the world, and consciousness itself, when realized, is one without a second. There the seventh chapter ends. And so, Swamiji has reported the seventh chapter, he has left it there because he wants to show the consciousness. Otherwise, it goes beyond and it shows that consciousness is one without a second. Everything that we say is included in consciousness. That is what is that religion is the cause of everything. Now, Swamiji goes back to the sixth chapter. He has taken this order because it is, I also found it while discoursing on Chandogya, that it is easier to deal with seventh chapter first, and that will make the base of the sixth chapter knowledge. Though chapter-wise it is the sixth, before seventh. So Swamiji here, after taking the seventh, and gradually, that is beauty, in seventh chapter, gradually the mind is lifted and we are shown the highest is consciousness. Swamiji has indicated it by telling that prana is known. Now we come back to the sixth chapter where we have dialogue between Aruni and Shvetaketu, his son. This has been referred to. Aruni Shvetaketu are in Chandogya Upanishad in two different places. One is Pravana Jaivali and they do not know and then you went to learn. That was not Advaita Vedanta, it was a step to know that the heaven, there the main point was that the heavens are not permanent, one has to come back. That was the main point there. And that was more known to the Kshatriyas, as he said, because that leads to Vairagyam. And then through Vairagyam we get the knowledge. That was the connection there. Aruna Shataketu we get again in the seventh chapter. And there, Aruna Shataketu we get again in the sixth chapter, please. Seventh was Narad Sanat Kumar. So in the sixth chapter, the story is like this. Aruni is a sage, Shetaketu is his son, and he is not interested in education in the beginning. So Aruni asks him, you go out, join any university, don't remain uneducated. He goes out, perhaps at the age of 12, and for 12 years he learns in various universities. And when he comes back, Aruni finds that his character has changed into unwanted directions. He has become haughty, egoistic, I know everything. And Aruni remembered that when he got knowledge, he did not turn like this. So he said that you must not ask that question. And teachers won't tell unless you ask a question. So the whole thing is thrown on the disciple. You must not ask that, knowing which even the unknown thing becomes known. So we come back to one without a second reality. You are not asked about it. And therefore, a picture of the modern educated young man is drawn. Haughty, I know everything, unbending, that is what happens. Then Shetaketu says, how can Father there be a thing knowing which other things will be known? Because he knows that if you want to study trees, you study botany. If you want to study animals, you study zoology. If you want to study earth, you study mineralogy. So he does not know that there is a science to know the fundamental reality. And then Arvind tells, yes, my boy, there is like that. If you know the nature of clay, do you not know the nature of everything made of clay? If you know the nature of iron, you know everything made of iron. If you know the nature of gold, you know everything made of gold. So, in that sense, there is a common reality which you must know. Then he does not want to go outside again, and he understands that his father has supreme knowledge. So, he asks his father, please teach me how this, we have to understand how there is one reality in everything. That is how the sixth chapter starts. So Swamiji says, I will read another passage where Shetaketu asks his father about the truth. And the father teaches him different things and concludes by saying, that which is the fine cause in all these things, of it are all these things made. That is the all, that is truth, that art thou, O Shetaketu. So the Tattvamasi which Swamiji had referred in the first chapter is taught in this sixth chapter of Chandogya. So what are the statements? Find cause in all these things. The cause is finer, the effect is grosser. We see the gross, we do not see the fine, subtle. Now, the finest or the subtlest, which is present in everything, that is the reality. Of it are all these things made. From reality, everything is made of reality. That is the all. Everything is made of it means that itself is all, in different names and forms only. That is truth because it never changes. That art thou. That is Tattvamasi. It is told in this way. The final cause of everything, of it are all these things made. That means that is all. That is the absolute truth. That art thou. Because it is only names and form. You are a name and a form. Shetaketu understands it to some extent, but does not understand it fully. So he asks his father, please tell me once more. His father understands that a particular difficulty is sticking in his mind. So he tells him as a different example he gives and tells him the same thing, that the fine cause of all, that is yourself, like that he again repeats. Again, Shataketu will say, Father wants more. Arun will understand. Another thing is a hindrance, which is not allowing him to understand this thing. So, again, through different examples, he leads him to the same point that the final cause of all is the reality. We are all its expressions. The example given by him is the banyan tree, which is very big. Its fruit is the smallest fruit perhaps in the world. He said, bring the one fruit of that tree, practical demonstration. He says, yes, father, it is here. He said, break it. After breaking, several seeds are there. And they are very, very small. He says, break one of them. So if you break one of the smallest seeds of banyan tree, nothing is seen inside. It is such a small thing. And then his father says, you do not see anything. From this only the big banyan tree came. So the finest cause, which we do not see, from that the whole world has come. So that itself is the whole world in names and forms, and that is your reality. Also, that is that the war. This is the way it is taught in the sixth chapter. 9 times she tells him Tatvamasi, and finally Shataketu catches his meaning. That is how we find in the sixth chapter. And then he gives various examples. As a bee, another example, O Shataketu gathers honey from different flowers, and as the different honeys do not know that they are from various trees and from various flowers, so all of us, having come to that existence, know not that we have done so. So we feel we are separate. Now that which is the subtle essence in it, all these exist as itself. It is the true, it is the self, and thou, Ashwataketu, art thou. So every time the same process, he gives another example of the rivers running down to the ocean. All the rivers, when they are in the ocean, do not know that they have been various rivers. Even so, when we come out of that existence, we do not know that we are that. O Shataketu, thou art that, so can he, so on he goes with his teachings. Now from here now, Swamiji is leading us to the finest parts of rationalism or thinking. Science proposes, but science cannot find the ultimate. Through science we come to know. Swamiji is telling now. Now there are two principles of knowledge. The one principle is that we know by referring the particular to the general and the general to the universal. A stone falls. We do not understand. All stones fall. Oh, we understand. Then we see everything falls. So we understand better. Particular to general, general to universal. That is the principle of knowledge. We must find everything. We must find the pigeonhole in which the similar things are kept. Then we know. And then that has to be referred to a bigger reference where it fits in. That we know. So our knowledge consists of a process of more and more generalization till we reach the universal. That is one principle of knowledge. And the second is that anything of which the explanation is sought is to be explained so far as possible from its own nature. For example, if something falls, if we say ghost has thrown it, then that is not real knowledge. But if we know that there was a power of gravitation in the stone and power of gravitation in the earth, that is why it has come. So we are explaining from the source of the thing. If we can explain everything from that source, we know better. As soon as we explain from outside, our knowledge is superstition or blindness. So, two principles of knowledge Swami has shown, particular to general to universal, and explanation from within. And Swamiji will show the only thing which satisfies this is Brahman, most universal and the source of all explanations. That is where Swamiji will lead us to. In science, you do not find these things. Einstein was trying to find the universal field theory. That means the energies are a different form. What is the one energy from which all that can be taken? People try for fundamental matter from which all matter is seen. They cannot reach that. And consciousness they are not aware of at all. Einstein is reported to have said, I've read in a book and I don't get the reference again. Einstein said that I am not able to get at the universal field theory because I have not been able to unify my mind. And he adds further that I know that the Indian sages unified their mind. If I knew their methods and unify my mind, then I could have found the universal field theory. That is what Einstein said. So, what I am trying to tell is that science shows us what is knowledge, but science is not able to fulfill its condition. We seek the common matter. Then we come again to proton, electron, again various particles have come. Common thing has not come. Photon and God's particles and thousands particles are coming. We want one source of energy, we are not getting. So, and energy and matter, Einstein said that E is equal to mc square, but we are not able to. If matter can be converted to energy and energy to matter, that means they are both the forms of a third thing that science has not got. Science only says this can be converted as that to this. Does it not show? The trend of the mind, if it is transcendent, then from that it jumps to the idea, oh, they are the two expressions of the same common thing. And that Vedanta calls as mind. Energy is in the mind, matter is in the mind. Then what is higher than that? What is higher than that? We have been shown. So, this is the example being given. He gives another example of the rivers running down to the ocean. As the rivers, when they are in the ocean, do not know that they have been various rivers. Even so, when we come out of that existence, we do not know that we are that. Example seems to be a reverse, but it is an example. Rivers are various. When they go to ocean, they do not know they have come from various sources. When we come out of Brahman, we do not know that we have come out of Brahman. And we feel various. Oshataketu, that thou art that, so on he goes with his teachings. Here Swamiji came. Now there are two principles of knowledge. The second is that anything of which the explanation is sought is to be explained so far as possible from its own nature. Taking up the first principle, we see that all our knowledge really consists of classifications going higher and higher. That is our knowledge. If there is something, we find a group which is similar and we call it apple. We are satisfied. We see various fruits, we collect them and we say fruit. We think we are known better. We collect all these typical things together, call them organic. We think we know better. So, forming a group higher and higher is knowledge. You have to come to the universal matter. and you have to come to the universal reality, which is Brahman alone. When something happens singly, we are as it were dissatisfied. Those who are students of Vedantic books, there is a book by Vidyaranya perhaps, Jivan Mukti Vivek. There he calls it Chitta Vishranti Rahitya. Chitta Vishranti Rahitya. That means when something singly happens, mind is not satisfied. It does not get rest. When it finds a group, it is satisfied. That is our knowledge. And that Swamiji has explained like this. When it can be shown that the same thing happens again and again, we are satisfied and call it law. That's all. Law of gravitation, we have knowledge. When we find that one apple falls, we are dissatisfied. But when we find that all apples fall, we call it the law of gravitation and are satisfied. The fact is that from the particular we deduce the general. From the general to universal, I have shown that. Apple, fruits, organic, reality. No, organic and inorganic are different. We are not satisfied. We have to find the common thing. When we want to study religion, we should apply this scientific process. That is what Swamiji comes to the practical application of the principles of science, which the science is not able to satisfy itself, to be applied to religion and see whether it can satisfy or not. And we'll find that this Brahman, one without a second, will satisfy everything. It is the most universal generalization, and from inside, all the explanations are coming. We don't have to go to outside. That's how you will bring now. When we want to study religion, we should apply the scientific process. The same principle also holds good here. And as a fact, we find that that has been the method all through, everywhere, trying to find the general and trying to find the explanation from within. That is how the things are going on. In reading these books from which I have been translating to you, the earliest idea that I can trace is this principle of going from the particular to the general. We see how the bright ones became merged into one principle, and likewise in the ideas of the cosmos, we find that the ancient thinkers going higher and higher, from the fine elements they go to finer and more embracing elements. Finer has to embrace more. And from these particulars, they come to one omnipresent ether. And from that, even they go to an all embracing force or prana. And through all this runs the principle that one is not separate from the other. It is the very ether that exists in the higher form of prana, or the higher form of prana concretes, so to say, and becomes ether. So this matter convertible to energy, energy to matter was known to our ancients. And that ether becomes still grosser and so on. Apply it now in other way. We have seen that there were gods in the dualist. And my God is superior to your God, let us fight. No. We have to find this Agni Devata, Indra Devata, Chandra Devata to be the expressions of one Devata. That is how Vedas, from Vedas we proceed to Vedanta. The generalization of the personal God is another case in point. So we come to Ekeshwarvad, personal God, monotheism. One God of whom all these are subordinates, one God of whom all these are forms. That is how we reach monotheism or one God theory, and beyond Hinduism, people have not reached that at all. They at the most end in one God theory. And they think that is the highest. So the Hindus they criticize, you have worshipped various gods. They do not know that we know that these gods merge in one God, and that is not sufficient generalization because I remain outside. So long as I remain outside, how can I accept it as the final generalization? And when I and that God are one, that is Nirguna Brahma. That is the more generalization. That is what Swamiji is deriving at now. We have seen how the generalization was reached and was called the sum total of all consciousness. Yes. But a difficulty arises. It is an incomplete generalization because we remain separate. Matter remains separate. We take up only one side of the fact of nature, the fact of consciousness, and upon that we generalize. But the other side is left out. Matter remains. So, in the first place, it is a defective generalization. No, Brahman is matter, Brahman is consciousness, Brahman is one without a second. So, nothing remains outside. Matter is nothing but consciousness appearing in names and forms. And so, there is universalization has reached, not in a personal God. Personal God may be the sum total of all consciousnesses. We define it as Sutratma or Hiranyagarbha, but that leaves aside the difference in bodies due to matter. So, in the first place, it is defective generalization, the incomplete. There is another insufficiency, and that relates to the second principle. Everything must be explained from within. If something happens to us and we say it has come from God, that is not correct explanation. It should be explained from within our nature. When we reach the Advaita or the Nirguna Brahma, then there is no difference between Brahman and Atma. Everything is explained from within only. There is nothing outside. That is practical Vedanta Swamiji says. Everything should be explained from its own nature. There may have been people who thought that every apple that fell to the ground was dragged down by a ghost. But the explanation is the law of gravitation because it is explained within. And although we know it is not a perfect explanation, because earth and apple and yet it is much higher than the other, than ghost throwing it. Similarly, an extra cosmic God does not explain everything, while the other posits an extraneous cause. So, throughout the whole range of our knowledge, the explanation which is based upon the nature of the thing itself is a scientific explanation. And an explanation which brings in an outside agent is unscientific. So, the explanation of a personal God as the creator of the universe has to stand that test. If that God is outside of nature, having nothing to do with nature, and this nature is that outcome of the command of that God and produced from nothing, it is a very unscientific theory. That is the monotheistic theory. And this has been the weak point of every theistic religion. Those who believe in one God, this is the defect that he has to take something to produce the world. Theistic religion throughout the ages, these two defects we find in what is generally called the theory of monotheism, the theory of a personal God, with all the qualities of a human being multiplied very much, who by his will created this universe out of nothing and yet is separate from it, extra cosmic God. Created from some material or created from nothing. He created from himself does not come. This leads us into two difficulties. We stop here. This will take up this point and proceed further in the next lecture. That how the impersonal principle satisfies both these conditions, which are not satisfied by the monotheistic theories. That is the next point, and that is why this Advaita Vedanta will be told to be the practical, because it satisfies our demand for rationalism. It satisfies our emotional being. It satisfies all sides of our personality. We can love that being without loving a particular person. So, all our faculties can be satisfied in the universal principle which is called Nirguna Brahma, Nirguna Saguna Brahma, and which is identical with our own reality called Atman. So we'll take up this issue and uh, go through Swamiji's third chapter. What are the obstructions in finding this? What are the other theories of religion which are weak? How they make us not think of the real reality? That is how Swamiji will explain now. Om Paratatve Sada Lino Ramakrishna Samagya Yo Dharma Sthapana Ratho Vire Shamtam Namamyaham Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanam